Hi everyone, I hope you can all listen. You can hear me, right? Yeah, I can hear myself.
Maybe you can just come.
Yeah, come closer.
Come closer. So
we
the
took
other
a shower this
session-
morning.
We can go. Yes, also.
Yeah, or we can sit here, maybe.
We can sit on the bench.
Yeah, it's keep it a little bit more intimate.
Let's go. Oh, we can sit here. Can we do that? Yeah, we can go.
What's stopping us? Are we streaming?
Are we on camera? Yes.
It's just bad for my notes.
Sorry about the
It's okay, maybe I can steal a table.
Can we change all the layout of this because we are not fitting the.
We are creative, so you can come closer.
Yeah, and maybe we can turn off the microphones. No, just kidding.
Right on.
Now the other guys are talking too loud.
Is it good? Should we?
Yes, we shall.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I will start by introducing myself for those who missed yesterday's session. I'm André Forte. I'm from UPTech. I'm the head of business development for the creative industries there. So welcome to the session. We will be discussing what innovation, creative and cultural industries, and the role of the hubs for promoting it is, or we'll try to understand it with this conversation. I'm joined by Paulo Calcada from Porto Digital, by Tânia Santos from Bombarda district here in Porto, and by Martin Q from Cross Innovation Learning Labs from Subtopia in Sweden. Which I would say is a pretty amazing panel. Maybe I'm a little bit dislocated, but thank God for you guys that I'm just asking the questions. It's a good role to be in. Well, let's open the panel and the discussion maybe with our host, Paulo, since you are hosting us here in Palácio. Well, maybe we could start by understanding a little bit what's happening in terms of Porto Digital. What is Porto Digital doing for the creative industries? What's the role that your organization is playing in the city? It's, for context, I would say it's really important. No?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. Well, if you allow me, I would like to say what is the creative industry doing for Porto Digital and for the city. That's the way we usually like to put the message. Yeah. It's really important for us, as I was discussing with Martin just some minutes before. Well, we are kind of all coming from the tech background at Porto Digital, at the municipality. Our vice mayor is also an engineer, as I am. So it's really important for us to kind of open our mind to, because usually we have a very narrow view of the way innovation can, as we say, transform the city. So it's really important to create this link, to create these links with the ecosystem, to work with the creative industries, and well, to help as tackling all the challenges that we are identifying nowadays. Very briefly, Porto Digital is a non-profit organization owned by the municipality and by the University of Porto, and also with the support of the Metro, the company that manages our subway. We have a kind of a very, I'll say, strange model, but we like to see it as a reference as well, because this partnership with the university also opens a lot of doors, because as we have defined, as the mayor and vice mayor defines, the innovation is really key in our perspective to help us tackling all the challenges that the city has. And that's why we believe that the model that Porto Digital is nowadays building, it's important, because we are trying to kind of create this I'll say twofold approach. In one hand, we are using technology, we are using all the infrastructure that the city has built, our fiber optical network, our cloud computing infrastructure, our sensing infrastructure, our developers, but at the same time we need to create this link with the city, with the citizens, and once again, that's why it's really important to have a very open mind, a very open view, and try to figure out the more efficient, more creative way of addressing challenges in order to be more inclusive possible. So we are kind of developing this concept in the last 5 years. We don't have kind of a magic recipe to achieve our results. We are learning as we move in a very open way. That's why it's really important to be here to discuss with all partners coming from abroad, to go to other countries to discuss our perspective, our views. So we're really excited to join you here today and to learn with you, and obviously, if possible, to share also some of the examples of the work that we are trying to do.
Thank you. I loved how you started because you provided us with a bottom-up kind of approach to how a city should act in terms of innovation and cultural industries. And picking up on that, I came to understand that Bombarda district is something that before passing to Bombarda district, I still want to, or we can go straight to Tânia maybe, I'm not sure.
As you want.
You tell me. But I would like to understand a little bit how is the municipality of Porto and how is Porto Digital supporting what Tânia and her fellows are doing from the Bombarda district, and what's the role of digital transition in the district?
We don't like what Tânia is doing. We don't support her. I'm joking. She's doing an amazing job. Well, as I was saying, our main goal here is to work as an hub. That's why one of our main initiatives is called Porto Innovation Hub. I think some of you were yesterday in our offices, some streets, 5 minutes walking, yeah. That's why we think that we should have this open canvas, okay, open to the ecosystem. We don't really like to see as the drivers of the changes. We really like to see as, well, the catalyst, the guy that usually brings the extra ingredient that could boost the work that is already being done by the ecosystem. So we are really open to work with UPTech, to work with the university, to work with all the players in the ecosystem, because in the end, if we step out, okay, really what really is the measure of our success is when we step out and the projects are still able to develop by their own. So it's really amazing the work that Tânia is doing and the guys from the Bombarda district are doing. We are really excited with the opportunity that we have to create this digital ecosystem there. We are also working with other players in other parts of the city at the same time. So, but I think that Tânia is the right person to explain us a little bit more on how she's seeing if everything that I'm saying makes sense or not. What do you think, Tânia?
More or less. I'm joking. Makes totally sense.
So I will ask the question other way, which is, Bombarda district is a really diverse community. It's all artists, artisans and creative people, but it's still really different businesses, different approaches. How can you have a strategy, or how did you devise your strategy to impact positively such a diverse community, and how did Bombarda district in this sense came to be?
Well, this is a true challenge, and the fact that we are sharing this with you is also because we need the inputs of our peers here in this international context. But the balance within diversity and specialization in Bombarda is the key for its success, or of this path that Bombarda made for these years. In terms of a context, some of you know that I'm founder and director of CRU, that is a creative hub that we created here in Porto, in Bombarda Creative District 10 years ago. And that was not a coincidence. I specifically look for a place in the city where a concept like a creative hub 10 years ago, in the context of Porto 10 years ago, would have a chance to thrive. And that place, that neighborhood, that is really a small neighborhood, it's around 7 streets actually, with around 180 business with open door to the public. But there's some magic over there that already was happening 10 years ago, and actually since the beginning of the 90s. When actually a group of galleries, art galleries, start to spontaneously creating this agglomeration of art galleries there. And actually they went further. They didn't just agglomerate their art galleries in this territory. They start to organize themselves spontaneously again to make some simultaneous events to attract more people, the art lovers, contemporary art lovers, to that area of the city. And 10 years ago, Paulo knows, our city was very different. We didn't have all these dynamics that we have now, the tourism, the attractiveness for talent that we have now. I think also today in the morning, the Vice President was very enthusiastic about our lifestyle here in Porto, and I, as a citizen of the city, can confirm. But 10 years ago it was different, so things were harder. So it was for me very important to choose a part of the city where something was already naturally happening, organically happening. And in fact, as you say, André, there is a specialization in the arts, because after the agglomeration of art galleries, another bunch of creative businesses started to appear and pop up, attracted also by that clustering of artistic businesses. And because of that, it creates that dynamic. So it has a specialization that I don't know if it was purposely or not. There's a strategy around that. Joint communication from the neighborhood. The city hall started to support these joint events and to give visibility, like Paulo said. In Porto City does that very well, to support in a way of visibility, of giving this little push to stuff that is already happening organically by the community, the local community. But it's also very diverse. So what happens is that we have in that neighborhood is a very residential neighborhood. Still. And so we have the normal businesses, traditional businesses. We have hotels, restaurants, grocery stores, this kind of shops, together with the contemporary jewelry studios, or very top-edge design studios, together with very traditional businesses. And that's also the magic of the place, but is an extra challenge because these people are also diverse, not just in the activities they do, but also in the generations they represent within these businesses, the digital literacy that these people as entrepreneurs have. So when we talk about introducing a layer of digitalization to a neighborhood like this is a challenge. And with the pandemics, we believe that we sensed that this neighborhood was at risk, like many other businesses, of course, during that time. But we were, although we were creatives, we were being left behind through this wave of digitalization, and also because diversity, generations, different digital literacies, etc. So it was also a boost for, or a trigger for us to think a bit how can this district extend or reach out to more people, to reach out through digital dimension, and how this digital dimension can bring back people to the physical territory, because in the end what we want is a district lives from this living, everyday living in the streets, so that's also what we want. Our approach, I would say, that is to listen to the different sectors and communities. So we have the restaurants, we have the art galleries, etc. Actually, we formed this year an association that even in our board of the directors have represented this diversity. So we are 9, representing 5 of the 7 streets. We have 1 from the restaurant, we have 1 from the art galleries, one from the co-working spaces, etc. And we are trying to tackle the different needs from the different activities regarding the digitalization. And then also the project that we are mentioning that we are called Bombarda Digital, that is using an open call for structured funds that is coming for the result of the pandemic situation. We have a plan that will address several different vectors of the local development of that neighborhood. That we need to address the urban challenges together with the connectivity, together with the mobility, etc. So we will tackle, and we are humble enough to say that we are not going to please everyone and not impact everyone in the same measure. So that's the possible reply to that question.
Yeah, I would. Obviously, I don't want to spend too much in this conversation with you because we have time to do it as Porto locals. And yeah, but I have a lot of questions to ask you afterwards. Now, I think it's good that we start with, that we move on to Martin. And Martin, I think that before we move on, it would be really cool if you would explain to us what do you do at Cross Innovation Learning Labs, and what is Cross Innovation, and to give us some examples so we have a ground set for the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, so I'm Martin Q. I run a creative incubator in a creative cluster called Subtopia. That's approximately 20 kilometers south of Stockholm in a small place called Alby. And we have approximately 30, 40 entrepreneurs working there, all of them artists wanting to make a sustainable living. And I was introduced to the concept of cross-innovation in this definition using tools from the creative sector in other sectors of society. And so far I have identified 3 distinctive different kinds of cross-innovation methods, I could say. First of all, we have, possibly there are more, but first of all, we have the using artists as consultants to solve questions from another angle, which Kreative Gesellschaft in Hamburg has been excelling in. They have very good and well-built programs for this. Me and the Royal Conservatory College of Music in Stockholm has developed these cross-innovation learning labs. I'm going to expand on them later. And also I found that in Bosch R&D Center in Mannheim, they have a thing called Platform 12, where they have artist residences in the top floor of their building, and engineers and designers and administrators collaborate with them on a daily basis. Because one of the problems of the cross-innovation things is that often it becomes a beautiful, fun project that everyone loves for 2 weeks or 2 months, and then it poof goes into ashes, and no one remembers it even more. The Cross-Innovation Learning Labs was an idea that emerged in the middle of the pandemic. Me and Thomas were interested and wanted to do something, so we just devised an idea to have digital speed datings, basically. So we had a bunch, maybe 10 artists of different kinds from Stockholm area, and we have about approximately 10 corporates. It's very difficult for corporates and artists to work together, but it's very easy for people to collaborate. So we found some interesting people from Apple, Scania, Ericsson, Rice, and other companies in Sweden, basically. And we did a small series of speed dates, I would say. And the idea of a learning lab, maybe you already know it, but our idea of the learning, our definition of the learning lab was that we don't actually know this. We are not experts, but we want to explore this field together with you. And we have been here maybe one step before you, so we don't know where we're going to end up, but we have an idea of the journey. And for example, it started with everyone sitting in groups and devising the golden rules of cross-innovation. So we have done this twice and found a lot of golden rules of cross-innovation. And then we coupled up everyone in pairs, or they coupled up each other in pairs, and had 1 week to discover a theoretical collaboration. So if the Apple guy and an actor had a week just to think about something we could do, and then everyone presented this. And we have done this 2 rounds now, one purely Swedish, one with Swedish and Lithuanian artists and companies. And I think so far we have like 5 or 6 projects that has actually become something. And this is not a product that just you wanted a good example. And yeah. There are a few, but one example that doesn't come from our project was that one of my, I am trained as a composer from the Royal College of Music in Stockholm, and one of my classmates is a piano improviser, and he has been collaborating with Scania to build better trucks. And it's not that he wasn't playing piano on the factory floor, he was using thoughts and ideas and methods from piano improvising and trying to implement them into how to build trucks.
Okay, so I have a couple questions for you still, just for us to get it a little bit better. And maybe these questions are stupid, but usually those are the better ones, in my opinion. So
yes, definitely. I'm also stupid.
Thank you. But I think that the first one is the process always trying to get artists into corporations or other environments, or the other way around is something that it's doable as well in your experience? And the other question that I have, it's a really simple one, is you said that you were not experts on it, so there's an experimentation basis to what you're doing.
Yeah.
So what is the balance in your activity between just sheer experimentation and benchmarking and replicating other initiatives?
Yeah, can we take one question at a time?
Yeah.
The first question was?
The first question was, that's a good question. No, the first question was to understand if the process itself is the same, involving artists in other people's contexts.
And how do we do it, and why do we do it?
Or if it happens the other way around. I think that's really important.
Yeah, as I've learned through these years and my own private research, it's very rare. This cross-innovation collaboration has been happening all through history, but they are quite rare because it's about mixing 2 very different cultures with each other. And usually you need to educate the artists in order to be able to even meet the corporates, and you have to educate the corporates in order to be able to meet the artists and do it at eye-level collaboration. This is not usually something like I come with creativity to your process, or if you collaborate with a clown, it's not about that you're dropping your notes and stumbling when you're presenting things. It's more about other things that are important. And it's also, if I'm collaborating with you, it's important that it's as rewarding for me as it is for you. So we are inventing something new together. And then also you need a lot of translation, because people may be talking about the same thing but using different words, and they don't understand each other. Or even worse, they think they understand each other, but they don't. And you can come in as an intermediary, as I am. You can come in and help them to start this happening. And I see two benefits from this. First of all, for the artists, that they find another arena for where their knowledge can actually be used. And so it's not that I believe we should put down or take away all the institutions for art. It's just you can work for 3 months at the theater of Porto, and then you can work 6 months for Scania, and then 2 years for television. So you have more options, more possibilities to use what you actually do. And secondly, you can suddenly influence car industry, healthcare, public administration, a lot of other areas with totally new idea that no one thought about. Not because artists have something magical about them, but they think in another way. And when you mix these heterogeneous people with each other and have a good knowledge on how to move the process further, you can accomplish magic things. And then the second question.
I think that the second question, we can open the floor for everyone, and maybe starting with you, Tânia, because of what you're doing. There's no, but I'll repeat it in a different way, which is there's no blueprint to do what you're doing with Bombarda district at this point. So innovating in that context, there's experimentation into it, and should be a little bit of benchmarking and replicating other initiatives. Is there a balance that you are looking towards, or is experimentation taking over what you're doing in Bombarda district?
Well, I must say that as a hub leader, we are kind of used to go into uncertain grounds, but now, fortunately, I have a network to support my experimentation. So we do it with a net underneath, that it's more safe to us to experiment, to try models, and also to benchmark with other cases, other study cases. So, of course, each case is a case, each city is a city, each neighborhood, it's a neighborhood. In these days, we are talking about even different villages and cities and neighborhoods. That's the scale of our discussion here in these 3 days of conference. But even with these differences, there's some common ground within these examples that we can benchmark and learn from each other. So regarding also what Martin was saying, and about, because what we are trying to do in Bombarda actually is a model of a distributed creative hub. So it's something that is already not, it's a amplification of a model of a creative hub, joining people from different backgrounds, joining people from different interests that work independently, but still they collaborate each other to reach a more significant impact in what they are doing and in their projects. So if we amplify this to a neighborhood or to a village or the scale cannot be like so big as a city, in my opinion. There's a proximity factor that is needed to this kind of magic happens. This serendipity happens in this kind of proximity fields. But this is what we are trying to do. So there's kind of different blueprints that we can follow. Not a recipe, as Paulo was saying, but we are not like building castles from nothing, I believe. And another thing that Martin was saying that I think it's important and interesting, he was talking about the languages that people talk, and that there's a gap between the understanding of like an engineer or a creative or an artist. Well, I think that problem still exists, but I think with the help of hubs, creative hubs, and other places that are similar to hubs, that problem is the tendencies to the gap be smaller, as I believe these places also play a role in the education that is not a formal education in university, but is a non-formal education that helps to this gap to be filled. And now you mixing people from different backgrounds, they learn from each other, and now you have more and more people with different educational paths. So I'm one example of that, but I believe in this network we can find many examples of people that have an initial academic background, and then they start to learn in other fields of expertise, and that makes a ground for transdisciplinarity. That is something that is very, very useful in innovating business models, processes, not just product and service innovation, but also this kind of innovation is the ability to combine different knowledges, and with that you're not just putting an engineer with a designer, but the designer already has some kind of knowledge that is not just design, that helps to fill the gap in the communication with other people. So I think with these two ingredients, the ingredient of multidisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity within the diversity, again, of a hub, together with education, I think we can build up a blueprint, and I hope this blueprint can be used in other places of the city and in other cities of the network, at least.
And actually, a designer is a good example of someone who is already transdisciplinary, usually using, but what is, an engineer can also be, depending on the engineer, it's very wide, both artists and engineers are very wide expressions that can mean very much things. Talking about the experimentation, I like the two others, I don't believe in recipes. I like to see what's in the refrigerator and what you can make of it. But still, most refrigerators look more or less the same, and people have more or less the same things in the refrigerators, and it's a limited way of how you can cook things. So finding some blueprints or golden rules or some manifesto to stick by and be able to vary is important. But experimentation culture, I actually went to scientific school in gymnasium, so I like the experimental way of how to make scientific experiments, that you prepare first and then you make the experiment and then you evaluate the results and either just drop it or do it one more or 100 more loops. And also to remember that approximately 95% of all scientific experiments prove that this is not possible to do. So failure is a big success.
Paulo, from what Tânia and Martin were saying, something came to mind that I think we can all agree that innovation is an ongoing process. You know, it's not something that you do it here and you stop it. So, and this is something that I actually picked up from the previous conversation when the topic of sustainability came to be. And sustainability not only as an ecological and humanly approach to things, but also it should be self-sustainable in time. You know, in your opinion and given your experience, how do you support this, not only this sustainable in terms of humanity and ecological mindset, but also support projects that don't become too dependent on your intervention, you know, to empower people to be self-sustainable? Well,
that's a very hard question, but before that, if you allow me, just like to reflect a little bit on what both Tânia and Martin just said, because for me it's really important. We have here Sarah from our team, which is responsible for, well, I would say that in the chaos to find some light, okay, that can guide us. Because as Martin said, well, I don't really believe on the blueprint or on the recipe, but in the end, well, it's hard to avoid them. It's hard to avoid them, especially when you are, for instance, working with 900 guys from the municipality team, where you are working with them, trying to explore how innovation can be seen as a mindset, but not only as a mindset. We are working with people. People need to be kind of, I would say, organized, or I would say led by this kind of blueprint. So try to find the balance between working on a completely open canvas, okay, in which everything is possible to happen, and at the same time be very focused on achieving impact, even if it's a small impact, even if it's a quick win. That's really important for the teams. That's really important for everyone that is part of the process. So it's really hard to find this balance between all the energy that you put on working with guys that are really open-minded, really open to, well, any kind of solutions for a specific problem, but at the same time to working with these guys that are on their daily basis, working with solving the issues that all our citizens are dealing on their daily basis. So it's really hard to balance that, and at the same time, because this is really important for us in terms of the strategy that we are defining. And I will go to your question, which is more related with the ecosystem. And as I've said, we are working on this kind of twofold approach. Okay, on one hand, working with the ecosystem, working with the in the open way with the society, but at the same time, we should look at the heart and soul of the municipality, which in the end are the ones responsible for all the mess that happens in the city. So, and that's, I think, what was the innovative approach that we had. Okay, we should not neglect. And the beginning, let me also say that. And the beginning, when I was invited by the vice mayor or the council man in that time to help the municipality in creating this innovation, digital transition, we are really excited with all the opportunities that we have, and let's try to build this amazing program to link entrepreneurs, creative industries and things like that, and then all these challenges that the citizens can identify, and then we will build an amazing city. Well, we failed, okay? We failed because we were neglecting the key ingredient in the municipality, which are all the men and women power that the municipality has, all the teams that in the end, as I've said, are solving all the small and big issues that the city has to address. So it's really important to have all this in mind, to have all these guys on our side, and to be able to do it, we need some methodology, we need to have this blueprint that we have that we are still trying to develop. But at least for now, I think that everyone is really excited with open the Porto Innovation Hub for them and to inviting them to explore. So regarding the ecosystem, as André was saying, it's really hard once again, and there's where we really don't have the perfect recipe. We have some instruments that we are making available. For instance, we have an open call every year to fund activities from the ecosystem, and obviously it's really exciting for us to see how a huge number of activities are new every year. Not because the initiatives that we had in the previous year failed, no, because the initiatives that we have supported in the previous editions are moving forward without our support. For instance, okay, it's not a requirement. You can apply again. It's possible, but it's really important for us to see how the ecosystem is growing, is finding other ways to develop their own activities. That's really important. So, well. Once again, our work, especially on finding this balancing between the energy that we need to put on having this open canvas, and at the same time to find some methodology, some instruments that could help everyone on a very agile way to have these quick wins, okay, and really feeling that innovation is really in the city transformation, okay.
Sorry. I just had a thought that instead of using a blueprint, maybe we are making maps. We are finding ways how to navigate in the jungle, and built from experience or other people's experience, you can find maps. So you can basically go anywhere, but you still have to respect the map. But actually, I was going to comment on something else you said about measuring the impact. I've been very much focusing on measuring things because first of all you have to of course know the difference between results and effects and impacts, but also it's important that you decide what is a successful outcome for me doing this, and how do I measure if this project was successful? Because if I don't do that, it will only be measured by head count and turnover, and maybe it wasn't. That's why I did this project, to earn a lot of money. And if it wasn't only about turnover, you have to define very clearly, probably from day one of the project, what do I want to achieve, and how do I know if it works? And there, I think digital tools can be very, very useful, and measuring in unusual ways and asking people questions, that is not that easy to ask people questions that they will answer in a way that you can use.
I think this all kind of leads us to some important topics. One is culture, that's, that you need to pick up on, and thinking on the case of Porto, I think that Porto is really specific in how its community self-organizes very often. So it's good to know that, for instance, Porto Digital's approach is not to force, but also to identify. But understanding this is something that comes from how to map it, how to understand its relations, and to collect data in some sense. So now turning this into a question is the hard challenge.
We are following you.
Yeah. So far,
In a good way.
Is
Good
it,
track.
this is
you're doing good.
Yeah, thank you. But this is terrible moderation when I do opinions instead of asking questions. But yeah, I do believe that we don't often see, except for the examples, obviously, that you were just sharing, Martin, we don't often see that corporations, artists, and even public stakeholders cooperate that much or that often, you know? And maybe it's how you measure the impact and how you communicate it, because usually corporations are really profit-oriented and they don't look beyond that. And obviously there's other notable exceptions, such as marketing budgets that all corporations have, and they spend it on events or whatnot, where there are artists. But this is obviously not enough when we want to do innovation. And there's people who have the tech power, there's people who have the intelligentsia, let's call it like that, to disrupt. How do we measure impact, or what kind of relevant data do you feel that can empower this type of relations? In your experience, is there any specific measurement or any data that you feel relevant to empower this type of relations and to foster more innovation? Just for an example, maybe this is a little bit far out, but I usually go to Barcelona and think about what Alda Colau is doing, collecting data for the citizens to promote innovation, that it's for the purpose of empowering their citizens. But this is one way to do it. Is there any other way that you've been finding that it's useful? I don't know if, Paulo, you want to start? Putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, no, it's really a very important question, because, well, we are really crazy about the impact. We're really crazy in defining KPIs that will guide us. For instance, I was having a fight with my team just before coming in, because, for instance, we have investing a lot on expanding our Wi-Fi network, for instance. We have free Wi-Fi everywhere in the city. We have this concept of immersive Wi-Fi. And the municipality side, based on the numbers, okay, based on monitoring the development of the network, that we should continue investing on expanding this. It doesn't go against what the private sector is doing on investing on the 5G networks, things like that. It's kind of a complementary approach. It's really aligned with the market, because we have also this market-oriented perspective. But we were not able, because some small stupid errors that the team made. Sometimes the team is not perfect. We are not able to have numbers from the last 3 months. So it's really bad for us, because we really need to have these numbers. I'm giving this example because it's a very simple example on how we can measure the impact of a service, okay? Its connectivity is giving access to the internet, so it's really easy for us to measure the number of people that are using. Obviously we can and we should evaluate the quality of the service that we are providing, if it's contributing for reducing the gap of internet accessibility and things like that. But the basic number is, are we or not seeing an increase usage of our network in the same, I would say, pace of the expansion of the network? It's very simple, okay? But there are other kind of investments. For instance, measure the impact of creating the Porto Innovation Hub. It's really hard, okay? It's really hard. Or measure the impact of creating this thing called doing business, or other initiatives that we are developing. It's really hard to create and to see how it will have some results, and at the same time will really change the way people is doing things. So we shall tend to say that this is not a sprint, okay? This is not something that we will be able to achieve a really high impact on the next day. This is a long term process, so we should be very resilient. We should really, well, kind of have kind of a light that guides us. So I'm giving these two examples because they are really different examples. On one side, it's really easy to measure the impact, or at least to kind of monitoring the way the investments that we are doing with public funding, with public money, have impact in our society. On the other side, we really need to go slowly, try once again to figure out what could be these small quick wins, the small examples on how we are now seeing things on a different perspective, because I think it's really important when we have this open canvas, when we are open our door to the artists, to the creative industry, that we are using all these bright minds as a different perspective for the society, and this is really important for us. And in the end, we believe, and we have now results that are showing us that this different perspective, these new ways to see things are really helping us, and I think that the project that we have in Miguel Bombarda is a good example on that, because I think it's the result of this different perspective on how to address a very concrete issue on the city. Okay.
I was thinking while Paulo was talking that we live in a data era, and this is very important. And even in the Bombarda, digital Bombarda project that we have, we plan to use data and to use data to be more productive, but also to measure the impact of the actions we plan to do in the neighborhood. And that's very important to have quantitative measurement of the actions we do, but also, and that's also sometimes the difference between creatives and engineers, or the economic side of it, or the creative side of it. But we need to keep in mind that even in research, investigation projects, very serious ones in the academia, we use not only quantitative data to analyze a situation, but also a qualitative data for and a qualitative analysis to evaluate impact. So and sometimes this is the collection of success stories and put faces on the stories that we are telling. That also measure and inform us back of if you are doing or not the good thing, or if you are in a good path or not. So we cannot just rely. It's not possible, like Paulo was saying. It's not possible for one side. We need to deal with it and live with it. But also not necessary. We need to also see the more human side of it. Economics doesn't measure everything, so we need to accept that in a way.
Just very briefly, I think that we are now living a data-driven decision-making, and I really like that approach because it's make everything more clear, more transparent. But at the same time, I think that the gut feeling that we sometimes have should also be used to drive us, okay? And be part of these ecosystems sometimes are really, yeah, it's a different way of doing it. Okay, and well, finding the balance is key for this, but we should not forget that this gut feeling that sometimes are driving us is key for helping us moving forward. Okay.
But then let me just add another stuff, and I will pass you on. Sorry, Martin. Also, André was talking about the cooperation between private, between public, between different players. You want to also address that question? And that's also what is Paulo saying is an example within the municipality, and not all the municipalities are the same, as we know. And even within the municipality, not all the departments are the same, and Paulo was addressing the difficulties and the challenge within a huge ship that is a municipality, that is really hard to turn because it's really involves a lot of people and so on. And there are challenges inside of course, the organization on implementing innovation mentalities, because this, what Paulo is saying, is an example of openness to this collaboration. And sometimes what we need to question is how much power the closeness give us instead of the being open to be close. How much risk we need to take to admit that we don't know the recipes or know to do everything and need to cooperate with different stakeholders in the city, and that will not make you weaker but stronger, because you will partner with people that will make you doing a better job in the end.
Yeah, one of the basic problems is that we don't know where we're going. We know the journey there, but the idea of a public administrator working with a classical composer is that we're going to arrive somewhere where we didn't have an idea of. But like you say, sometimes as running a ship like this, for me, we are also driven by, financed by the municipality of Botkyrka, and sometimes I feel like I'm in forestry. I'm planting a seed that will become a tree in 80 years, and if it's healthy. But sometimes things happen through disruption as well. And I think the one strong impact can actually be the examples that a piano player can collaborate with a truck industry, that an accountant, public accountant can collaborate with an actor and a musician, that you can do things that you never imagined would happen. And just example, someone else did it in Sweden or in Portugal or in Spain, and suddenly you rise the level of possibilities of what can be achieved. And of course, one of the problems is that about 90–95% of everyone employed in a public administration or a private company work very consistently on status quo. It should be the same today as it was yesterday and tomorrow. And we are these odd people who try to disturb the process and make new things. But if we can locate these weird people in different organizations, and if we can collaborate with them, this is what we did in the Learning Labs, Cross Innovation. If we can find them and do exciting things with them, I see a prosperous future.
Okay, so I will do terrible moderating again, just for this one time. But this conversation leads me to something that happened in the United States in the 90s, which was the coming of the Roland 808, TR-808 synthesizer, that it was a failure completely. And it turns out it's the most influential synthesizer that we have nowadays, just because we now are seeing it being used on all hip-hop. It was in the birth of techno, just because it was a failure commercially, and then other people were able to acquire it and start using it in disruptive ways. So this is, to me, always kind of an example of how innovation and disruption can happen, and maybe on how we are too eager on wanting results immediately and don't leave time for people to be able to act with the technologies that we are empowering them to, and maybe reach other communities that are often left out, you know. And so just to wrap it up and to do a final question, which is, how do you believe that HUBS should act to not only evolve a further, more diverse community, and do you seek to do it? I mean, Porto municipality has been doing it in very different ways. I know that we have associations acting in different localizations that are not only looking for those of us that are privileged enough to engage with innovation, but is this something that we should try to find a balance between results and fostering and empowering communities that will give us results later on? I don't know if any one of you want to pick this up.
Can I start this time?
Yeah, please.
I think you should not stress so much that it has to become a result, because that's very disturbing for creativity. I think you should focus more on play, and like play like small children play, that you just things just happen and you invent as you go, and you have fun. And I always say that this is the way people like us have fun. And suddenly you emerge at something exciting, and you realize, because you have your original profession, that you can do something of this. And not necessarily saying, okay, we're going to go from A to B, because we might realize we're going from A to zebra, or from A to 21, finding out, using all the possible ways, and just follow the road and see where it ends.
Okay. Well, it's important to have these playgrounds, obviously. We are, in the end, all kids. But at the same time, well, in the end, we at least should know what drives us, okay? Because sometimes people forget that in the end, we need to open some doors, okay? We need to be able, be able to use this extra energy that could lead us to open a door, to build the door and to open the door for this new perspective of the world, I'll say. But at least let's build the door. Let's try to build this door that in the end we should open it. But yeah, it's hard to find the balance. We need good politicians to help us have some room for these good feelings that, well, in the end, are the ones that will drive us. But yeah, we are here to once again to hear from you and to play with you.
Let's play.
Yeah. You have the closing words.
That was my last words.
Let's play.
Let's
Okay.
play.
If this is something that we can take from this, it's playing. It's fun, and it's profitable, maybe, or not. I don't know, but it's good. Thank you. This is it.